Hello, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Are You Convinced? Thank you so much for tuning in. Damon, how you going?
I'm doing really well, James.
That's good. I'm doing really well too. Thank you for asking.
I didn't, and I'm offended that you assumed.
Okay, I won't ever assume again.
Good.
So here we are.
I feel like our relationship is fracturing.
I mean, yeah, there's been a lot of tension. We have to argue at each other once a week.
I'm also in a very fired up and angry mood today.
Yeah, no, I'm very, very excited to hear your argument this week. What are we doing this week?
Marvel Cinematic Universe, James, is what we're looking at today.
Very exciting. We're heading into the release of Thor Ragnarok.
Looks great.
It's coming out October 26th here in Australia. Very lucky because the US doesn't get it till the 3rd of November.
Well-
I don't know why. So actually what I think it is they use Australia as a test audience.
Okay.
Because we're a smaller market, so they can release the movie here. If it's doing really, really well straight off the bat, you know what they do? They put it in more theaters in the US.
Really?
Because they would pay for a certain number of theaters, say, I don't know the actual, but like 5,000 theaters across the US, it opens on opening day. We get it a week before. If it's doing ridiculously well, they go, okay, well, let's open it in another 1,000 theaters.
I was thinking maybe because I always get this guy's name wrong. Tiki. The director. No, this is really bad because he's great.
Hunt for the Wilder People.
Hunt for the Wilder People. He did What We Do in the Shadows, which is an amazing, one of my favorite vampire movies ever.
Awesome.
Bar none. It's just fantastic. He's a Kiwi. Do you think maybe they're confused and think he's Australian and they're doing this as like a gift?
No, but they do this every time. So all typically the big centerpiece movies. So there was the Avengers films, Captain America: Civil War. They come out around around May.
Yep.
Start of May is when they come out in the US. We get it the last week of April every time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. I think it's a market thing. They use us to test, and then if it's going well, they up the numbers and they can sell more tickets.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a bit of sense. I can understand that.
So I'm pretty sure that's
I'm going to come up with that guy's name by the end of this podcast. I'm kicking myself that I can't get it right. Tiki Watane? Is that right?
I wouldn't know how to say it. That's the trouble. I could probably write it down.
Yeah, and I don't want to be offensive to anyone because he seems like this has got nothing to do with it. I respect Maori culture and Kiwis. I love New Zealand. I've been there a few times. And the guy deserves to get his goddamn name right by some hack. I'm sorry, James. I'm really energetic today. I'm really fired up for my argument.
Fantastic. But, I mean, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we've been at this since 2008. We're heading into 10 years.
10 years of just really good, solid movies coming out every year.
And that's the thing. They're solid. Even at their weakest points, they are in... We'll get into that. No, but I mean, compare them to other films that you've seen. They're like at worst entertaining.
That's right.
You know?
Absolutely. Do we want to address the elephant in the room on this?
What's that?
Hello,
Mr. Elephant.
Get back in your cage. They're better than DC.
Oh, well.
We don't want to start this. We don't want to be all
and see, you get this. You go online anywhere where there's fans of comic books and these movies and such, and it immediately becomes the us versus them thing,
which is ridiculous.
I am a comic. Well, I don't read a lot of comics, but I'm a fan of the characters.
You like the properties. You like the characters. You like the stories.
Yeah. And I am not a Marvel fanboy. I am not a DC fanboy. I love the Marvel movies. I don't really enjoy the DC movies.
No.
I would love for them to be doing well.
I think that's what every critic I've ever watched online, whenever they review a DC movie, that usually the first things they'll say are or is, I wanted this to be good. Yeah. We never go into a Marvel movie desperately wanting it to be good. Because like you said, at worst we know it's going to be entertaining.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be offensively bad. It's not going to destroy source material. It's not going to be confusing. And it's going to have a better color palette than just that weird grey blue or black, as was the case with Suicide Squad.
Like totally the appropriate color scheme for Superman, the character that resembles Hope.
Yeah,
Let's
dark
make
grey.
it dark and just
dark grey, concrete,
depressing.
Steel. It's Man of Steel, color palette of steel. Am I right? Let's talk more. Let's talk more Marvel.
Yes, back to Marvel. What we're focusing on here, 10 years. That's just insane. We started with crazy. Iron Man back in 2008, they started this and they had a plan from the get-go. Like you can tell, they thought this through. This wasn't just a off the bat, let's just roll with it and see what happens. They knew what they were doing.
How did you feel when you first saw Iron Man and then that after credit sequence? I remember there being a rumor about, I know you for this one you've got to stick around.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to watch the end of the credits. Now everyone just does it just in case.
I do it for everything. It's just like, no, you got to stay because Nick Fury's going to show up and recruit them to the Avengers. James, we're watching Beauty and the Beast.
That would have improved that movie vastly. That was a terrible movie.
Don't get me started. To me, it wasn't bad, but we should do Disney movies at some point.
We will do Disney at some point, just to say so that I can rant and rave about how bad Beauty and the Beast
the
was.
original Beauty and the Beast is probably the earliest film I recall seeing in the theaters, and so very dear to my heart.
Sure, yeah.
As a grown 29-year-old man.
Never reveal your age. Come on.
Anyways, we'll do Disney another time. We promise.
That's right. But my point was, when you stuck around for the end credits and you see Nick Fury come out, and he's all like, "We're putting a team together," and then your nerd mate next to you, or maybe you got to.
I was the nerd.
In my case, I was sitting next to a mutual nerd friend of ours who does like comics very much, and as soon as Nick Fury appears on screen, I feel this hand grab my arm so hard it hurt. Going, dude, what? He's like, just watch. I'm like, okay, you're hurting me.
I am.
You're hurting me. And then he's all like, we're putting a team together or whatever he says. And then he just sat there in his seat, just flapping his hands up and down, going, we're getting an Avengers movie. And 10 years ago, what are the Avengers? It's hard to think of a time pre this cinematic universe.
Isn't that incredible, though? They've taken these stories that it was just a really geeky nerd culture, these comic books, and now it's such a main focus point of pop culture in general. Well, everybody knows.
That's an interesting thing that you mentioned. When you talked before about when it comes to DC versus Marvel and comic book fans, most comic book fans I speak to don't have a preference. Yeah. They may have a favorite character or a favorite storyline, but I've not met someone or even read anything from someone online where they'll go, I only watch DC or I only read Marvel. A lot of that is seemingly coming from people who are not late to the train, but sort of bandwagoning a little bit. And I know maybe after 10 years and nearly 20 movies, I think some people are a little bit over Marvel. And because it's the internet's so polarizing and everyone's like, oh no, it's too bright and too happy. I'm sick of jokes in these movies. I'm sick of having a good time. And then they see a DC movie where it's dark and gritty and violent and they go, that's better. That's what I want. And they let that cloud their judgment. I really do think people are being clouded by what they want out of these movies and not just watching the product, which has almost always been bad.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Wonder Woman, I think, was the only
one. That was fantastic. Yeah. I mean, it sort of stumbled a little bit towards the end.
Yeah.
It's just that sort of CGI battle scene.
But he still kept the mustache. All this fake armor, this debris is getting turned into black armor molding around him, which looks awesome. And then you look at his face and realize he's still got
that
dapper Brill cream haircut and a mustache. Like, it doesn't work.
That was just a fantastic film. It was beautifully shot. It was bright and it looked incredible.
Had a good color palette.
Yeah.
Like a Marvel movie. Which we should probably
should focus more. So let's get into, what are we, 17 films. We're going into Thor Ragnarok. I'm pretty sure this is the 17th film that they've done in the MCU.
Out of 17.
Out of 17. What's your favorite? What do you like?
Well,
do you have a top 3 even?
I've got a firm favorite.
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
The first one?
Yep.
Okay.
That's not to say I don't enjoy the second one or anything. I really like the second one. But I went into the second one going, no, this is not going to recapture that magic I experienced from the first Guardians.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
That was, and we talk about how fun Marvel movies are. That was, for me, like watching Star Wars for the first time.
Okay. I can definitely see that.
Because it was just this big, epic space opera with guns and CGI and graphic and people being... but fun and witty and cool. And that scene where he's walking through the temple at the very beginning and he plugs in his Walkman and that song starts like, hey, what's your matter with your grandpa? And he's kicking those little rodent things out of the way. I'm like, I'm going to love this movie.
Yes.
Already this has hit exactly the note that resonates well with me.
Yeah.
And from then on, I kind of compare Marvel movies back to Guardians.
Back to that one.
Did I have as much fun watching that as I did watching Guardians for the first time? Unfair? Maybe. No, still Guardians. Still
So,
Guardians.
how do you feel going into Thor Ragnarok, which a lot of people are comparing to Guardians of the Galaxy?
I can understand why. I've actually read some negative feedback on that.
Okay.
Again, along those lines of why does Marvel have to make everything big and bright and fun? Why does everything have to be fun? Since when is fun a bad thing? Why is... Anyway, no problem for me.
Yep.
That's what I enjoy. I like that. And I think, again, Tiki Watanabe. I feel really bad. Tiki Watanabe is really putting his own spin on this, which is great.
Yeah.
And so he should. I like the fact that, and when you watch his other movies, he captures the minutiae of an actor's performance really well. Okay. That lends itself really well to comedy because you get all their little eccentricities in their face and in their speech. But I think it'll work really well for action as well because the amount of slow-mo, cool guy walking shots we're getting in this movie, and they're pulling just really cool-looking eyebrow expressions or facial expressions. You're like, oh, that just looks so dope because he's capturing the really small human elements of the characters.
Sorry, I just looked up his name for you just so you could...
Thank you. I was wondering what you were doing.
Sorry, I was listening
Taika Waititi.
Yeah.
Taika Waititi.
Yeah.
Yeah, legend. Really cool. Plays one of the characters.
Yeah, I saw that we were looking at the trailer, yeah.
I can't think of the character's name. I'm sure if you were to Google it, you'd find out. But we're not going to. We're not prepared.
No,
we're going to leave it. But the inspiration... Sorry.
No, go on.
The inspiration for that character is he's meant to be like a Maori... bouncer is kind of the whole thing. Like just a massive dude that could crush you. But he talks like this, and he's really kind and caring, bro. You know, I could squish you with my thumb, but I'm not gonna, because I'm not that kind of bro. You know, one of those.
Now you've offended.
Now I've offended people.
You didn't before, but now you have.
You better talk for a while because I'm just alienating the fan base.
I mean, I'm just sort of scratching my head. I don't know. Well, I like so many of the films for different reasons.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Winter Soldier, solid classic.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
That is one of the top tier ones. I think Avengers is a big one for me, just because of it was the culmination of everything they'd done up to that point, and it was a lot of fun. It was well done. They brought the characters together really well, I felt. Anyway. Age of Ultron, it's one that gets a lot of criticism. I guess wasn't as strong as the first Avengers. James Spader. Insane in that movie.
Yes,
like,
he was.
I actually hate that's it. Like,
yeah, Marvel's got a real problem with that, and that's going to come into my argument.
Okay,
but they've got a real problem with bumping off good villains too early.
Yeah,
Loki now looks like he's becoming a bit of an anti-hero.
Yeah, that's very interesting because Thor: Dark World sort of ended with Loki taking the throne, like he was. Replacing Odin like in disguise.
Yeah.
And
that's not spoilers, by the way. It's not that great a movie.
That's the end of Dark World, which came out probably 3 or 4 years ago now.
Maybe
longer.
Yeah.
So I felt like the next film had to really deal with the repercussions of that, and it might to a little bit.
Yeah.
But from the trailers, it doesn't look like it's going to be a big element of the story.
What were you telling me about? You talked about how they plan this whole universe out.
Yeah.
You were saying something like they've got like plan A, B, C, and D.
They have contingency plans. So they had this whole. They have things mapped out. Like we've got up to like 2021 or something, I think. So Avengers 4 is 2019, but they still got into the future. They've got Spider-Man Homecoming 2, they've got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, so that's going into like 2021 at this stage. They've got past that planned out, and they map out different scenarios. So they had a plan if they didn't get the rights to use Spider-Man. They had a backup plan for what they would do if they weren't going to have Spider-Man.
I'm glad we didn't have to use that contingency plan.
Oh.
Because Homecoming is my favorite Spider-Man movie.
Yeah,
I'm happy to throw it out there. I'm happy to say I rate it higher than 2.
Okay, no, fair enough. 2, we were saying 2 is probably one of the cornerstone superhero films. It is really Spider-Man 2, Sam Raimi. It is one of the reasons we have these movies.
Yeah,
it's set so many sort of.
I know what you mean. Yeah, it just
standards.
You set so many standards, and like you say, it was the cornerstone because before that, I don't think people genuinely thought you could do a superhero movie earnestly. It had to have some sort of a gimmick. So like Tim Burton could do Batman because he could bring Gothica into it. You could do What's another one? Batman was done. You can do Superman because he's
going to be really campy.
Because he's really campy, and you can make it really campy and classic. I think up to that point, people were like, oh, you can't just make a superhero movie.
It just doesn't, yeah.
No, but Sam Raimi had that right mix of campy, quirky earnestness that resonated perfectly with the character. I just think they nailed the character better in Homecoming.
Yeah.
I think the actor was better.
All round, yeah. And younger, I think, is more suited. They've gone back for a younger Peter Parker, which is great.
Yep.
So, in my opinion, Tobey Maguire is a great Peter Parker.
Yep.
Sort of an okay sort of Spider-Man.
I'm with you. Yeah.
Andrew Garfield, sort of an average Peter Parker, kind of a pretty good Spider-Man.
Yep.
And the Tom
Holland.
Yep. Thank you so much. Both. He is.
He really super. He gets the wittiness right. He gets the vulnerability right. He gets the youth.
Yeah.
Right. Spider-Man is meant to be
fight
young.
Scene in Civil War. That as soon as we saw that, we were just like, yes, they have nailed this.
Finally. Yeah.
You have a metal arm?
That is so cool. You remember that really old movie, Empire Strikes Back?
Dude, you remember that movie? Come on, everybody knows that movie.
I wasn't around when that came out, and it's still in like my top 5 favorite movies.
Yeah.
You know that movie.
Actually, I really did enjoy Homecoming. The only issue I had, and I think this is sort of a shared thought with a lot of people, is Tony Stark was a little bit too involved.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, but
it was still fantastic.
Yep.
So
should we talk about Black Panther that's coming out soon too? Speaking of different and looking really good.
Oh, doesn't it look insane?
I love the fact that they are going to different places. Diversity in films is something that gets bandied around a lot nowadays, and we're realizing how much more important it is.
Yeah.
To see I don't mean to sound pandering here or patronizing, to see a almost entirely black cast.
Yes.
Not even the...
And doing the movie that they're doing.
Yeah.
Could you imagine the crap they would have copped if they had... Yeah. If it had been 50% white.
You can't whitewash this movie.
No.
Which means... Sadly, really sadly, it took an element of bravery to do it.
Yeah.
Which sucks that I even have to say that, but I love the fact that they are doing it.
There's just so many talented actors in this film.
Michael B. Jordan, I was gushing to you about how good he looks in this. Like, he looks ripped and toned. I love his haircut in this, that sort of curled, sort of half dreadlock mohawk thing he's got going on. I would swap bodies with that man in a heartbeat. You know, he's losing in that deal, but I would do it in a heartbeat.
I did point out before, and I blew your mind, and you can't watch Marvel movies the same way anymore.
No,
is that they have in the first movie of launching off a new character, they have pitted him against himself.
Yeah,
they did this with Iron Man.
Yeah,
in the first movie, he versus another Iron Man, essentially Ironmonger.
Well, before he becomes Ironmonger, he's another tech genius in a suit.
Yeah,
yeah, it's.
So what else do you have? You've got Ant-Man.
Yep.
Fighting Yellow Jacket.
Yep. Doctor Strange, he fights another wizard. Well, he fights Umamu or whatever. But
but essentially the main antagonist of that film.
Yep.
And they do it quite a lot. Incredible Hulk is Abomination.
Abomination, that's right. Because you've
I
got
don't know
me thinking now. I'm thinking Thor, he fights against...
Yeah, that's probably one of the exceptions. Same with Captain America, even though Red Skull's sort of souped up as well, but it's not really in the same way.
You could use the analogy of like they've got to come to grips with their powers in their origin story, which means fighting the negative version of their powers. Yeah. Maybe it's an allegory, but you're right. As soon as you said that, I thought, oh god, no, that's ruined so many Marvel movies for me now. He's just punching himself over and over again.
But speaking of getting into these new characters we've developed these characters that everybody knows, Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, all these mainstays of Marvel, and now we have to branch out into these other characters that people don't really know. And I find that they tend to be the films that I actually enjoy a lot more just because I don't have any expectations.
Well, that's kind of why I'm looking forward to. Right now, if you say Thor Ragnarok or Black Panther, which we actually did talk about before recording, I don't know which one I'm more excited about. Now that I really think about it, I'm more excited to see the new character.
Yeah.
Like, Thor looks awesome. It looks amazing. But to an extent, I kind of know what I'm getting.
Yeah, okay.
Whereas Black Panther could be a total bomb. It's a bit of a gamble. It's got that risk element. It could be garbage.
Yeah.
I don't think it will be, but that's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Considering this has been going for 10 years and we still don't know what we're going to get from their next installment,
That's a fantastic position to be in,
isn't it? That's a nice problem to have.
And it's like you go and you see these movies, and then I'm at home straight after. I'm like, Wikipedia, who's that? Who's this? And, like that Charlie.
Yes.
Doing the conspiracy theory, tying them together.
With the wool, tying everything together on the board.
And this guy's connected to this. Oh my God, it all makes sense.
And then in a later installment, this guy's going to rip off this guy's arm. That might be a spoiler, I don't know.
All the Marvel characters lose arms. It's a homage to Star Wars.
No, it's not.
Yes.
Really?
In so many Marvel movies, characters lose arms, and it's because of Star Wars. Yes.
You've blown my mind twice tonight, once on air.
Have we blown your mind, listeners? Are you learning things?
Are you convinced?
I mean, we should probably start to get into the argument, but there's just so much to talk about.
There's almost too much to talk about. Maybe we should have another Marvel episode. Or maybe we should do a DC episode in which we talk about Marvel as much as we've talked about DC in this one.
But I guess, let's go real quick. So after Black Panther, which is Feb 16, we've got Infinity War May 4th. Again, I think we're going to get that.
Do you want to tell your quick little story about...
So Infinity War. Earlier in the year, I was at D23, which is in Anaheim, California, which is the Disney Expo they do every 2 years. And I went to the live action panel. I camped out. I was there.
Did you really camp out?
I camped out to go to the live action panel.
You are a super nerd.
There at about 9 p.m. and the panel didn't start till 10 a.m.
Oh, wow, James.
So it was so worth it. So it wasn't just Marvel. It was the Disney live action panel.
Okay.
We had all sorts of Disney stuff. We had Star Wars. Mm-hmm. So Mark Hamill came out. Daisy Ridley came out on stage. I've seen Daisy Ridley in the flesh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. There's no way you can say that without sounding like a stalker.
No, probably not.
I mean, Mark Hamill seems like a nice guy, and you should give him his space. Is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Stop hanging out in the bushes in front of his house.
Okay, I promise. And then they went into Infinity War, and they brought out Josh Brolin, and we're like, wow, this is really cool.
Was he wearing the gauntlet?
Yes, actually, I think they.
Every photo I've seen of him lately, he's wearing that damn gauntlet. Yeah. I don't know if it's the same photo retread or maybe he just hasn't taken it off.
And then they bring out like Mark Ruffalo and Chris Hemsworth, and you're like, okay, cool. It's like, but we're not done. They just kept bringing people out. Robert Downey Jr., Benedict Cumberbatch, Sebastian Shaw, Anthony Mackie, Scarlett Johansson, Chris Evans weren't there. Tom Holland was.
Oh, okay.
There's just so many people. So Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, probably the few that
Where
that
were
weren't there.
Those two? Or I'm not saying.
Chris Pratt wasn't there either.
Oh, fine, so okay. I'm not saying that those two weren't together. I'm just saying they weren't there together. That's all I'm saying.
But yeah, you'd probably find the photo online. Look up D23 Infinity War panel.
Just mega panel.
It's like 20 cast members, and it was just insane. And then they showed us a raw cut of the trailer. Oh, we're in for a treat with this movie. It looks insane. Thanos is just going to absolutely wreck everything.
Great.
And I think this is a point that we sort of mentioned before. We were discussing before we started is where do you go after that?
Well, even if they lead into a sequel, you'd have to think the energy of this movie is going to be so big, they have to try and top it somehow.
Yeah. And it's going to be very interesting, especially with contracts ending. Chris Evans, I don't know what Robert Downey Jr. is.
To use the same sports analogy that I used to you before, if you imagine the AFL has just finished its trade period, so I've been watching all day seeing who my club brought in and traded out and all this sort of stuff, and the draft is coming up next. They have drafted very cleverly what we would call in sports terms depth.
Okay.
They've brought in great depth. So when Tony Stark is no longer a part of the Avengers, up steps into his role
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah. As we talked about, basically the same character with different abilities.
It's really the same movie, really. Iron Man 1 and
almost
Doctor Strange,
beat by beat. But anyway.
You've got Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Shaw are both there. We don't know. One of them's going to become Captain America.
I think they both should.
And just fight over it?
Yeah, just
the one shield, though, and they just...
Or if one represents one part of America and the other represents another part.
East side, west side.
Yeah, a Biggie Tupac sort of. How do we get to here? Okay, it looks good. That's good to hear.
So Infinity War, the first film. Hopefully, everybody else should see this trailer soon. It looks insane. It was very raw though. It wasn't finished. I like Josh Brolin. Thanos wasn't even colored in properly.
Are you saying Josh Brolin didn't look real?
He didn't look real. No, he wasn't colored in properly. So they obviously hadn't finished the CGI effects. But when this trailer dropped, everybody's going to lose their minds, and that is May 4th in the US, I'm pretty sure. So we'll get that one a week earlier.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great.
But enough of that. I think
Okay,
we've talked enough. Marvel Cinematic Universe is such a broad topic. We've sort of had to narrow it down. And I like this episode because it's not so specific. We have the whole cinematic universe to cover.
That's right. It's a big, broad arching topic that we can go into.
So you're going first, Damon.
Yeah, I've taken this. I've decided to choose a bit of a pet peeve of mine, a bit of a bugbear that I've had for a while. I'm going to argue worst Marvel movie, worst Marvel Cinematic Universe movie.
Okay.
So that, to my mind, that rules out Ang Lee's Hulk.
Yeah, because that's yep. We're just talking Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Since Iron Man 1, the worst one that's come out.
Yep.
And it's Iron Man 3.
Okay. I mean, that's not me agreeing with you.
No, well, you should, because it is. And, okay, I'm going to just ask, just to get the ball rolling, what do you think is the worst Marvel Cinematic movie?
Oh, okay.
What's your least favorite? What's the one that works the least?
Really, is it? I don't know. It's like I said, I like so many of them.
Yeah, because
for different reasons.
when they fall flat, they typically just fall flat.
Yes.
They don't bomb and dive. Iron Man 3 actively offends me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd probably say Incredible Hulk.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, now I can still watch that and just enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, it's two great big CGI things punching each other.
Yeah.
You know, I don't go into that with high expectations. Iron Man 3 looked incredible. All that trailer campaign with the Mandarin, you'll never see me coming. Oh, wow. He looks really menacing. He looks so cool and menacing.
Ben Kingsley.
Ben friggin' Kingsley.
Sir
Ben Kingsley. The guy who played Gandhi. Like, acting pedigree.
Is that better than being Gandhi?
One.
Being Gandhi or being Sir Ben Kingsley, who has played Gandhi. Like,
I'm going to make a joke here, and I apologize in advance. At least if you're playing Gandhi, you can eat.
Wow.
Well, Gandhi went on a hunger strike. Like, good on him, but I'd rather eat. Anyway, moving on. Okay, who have I offended so far? Kiwis, DC fans, and all of India. Okay, so really, Collider.com. Are you aware of Collider.com? Yeah. They put it best when they described Iron Man 3, I feel. So I'm going to quote them. Iron Man 3 is a fascinating and incredibly divisive film in the MCU. Yeah, we can agree on that, I think. It's a film that should carry the entire burden of the Avengers on its back and instead just shrugs it off and shrugs off the responsibility of being part of a shared universe to just go down its own thing. It's kind of an FU to people who have expectations, not just in terms of the MCU, but also with the Mandarin twist. That's ultimately my biggest problem with this movie, the Mandarin twist.
Okay.
But I've got to try and keep myself calm and focused on this, or else I'm just going to start shouting.
Stay to script.
I'm going to try to stay to script. It's not going to go well. Okay.
This is just a picture of Iron Man you've drawn with a crayon.
It's literally just the poster of Iron Man 3, Damon. You haven't prepared at all. Okay.
Did you Photoshop your face on there?
That's kind of creepy, dude. Okay, so the movie starts off okay, ripping off The Incredibles, but with Eiffel 65 playing in the background. That's the other thing. It's just The Incredibles. Get out of the car, Bucky. I work alone. I'm Mr. Incredible. I don't need you. He does the same thing to Aldrich Killian at the very beginning.
Okay, yeah.
Calm down, Damon. Stay to script.
You didn't like The Incredibles?
No,
or you just bothered that they did it again?
I loved The Incredibles. I just wish they didn't do it again with this piece of crap. Okay,
keep it clean. Crap's okay, but
I'll try not to swear.
As Captain America says, language.
Did Cap just say language? The first 10 minutes include an awkward narration by Stark explaining how everything to come in this movie is all his fault. My other big problem with this movie, Aldrich Killian comes in. He's talking about what we learn to be the Extremis program.
Yes.
He talks very early in the movie about harnessing the body's bioelectrical potential, whatever that means.
It's just that sort of scientific fake talk.
But when you think about it, bioelectrical, okay, so that super heats humans? I like talk about how it harnesses the heat energy your body... whatever. Killian is played by an incredibly smarmy and boring Guy Pearce, who is not only charming his way through the role, but boring the pants off everyone as the same suited megalomaniac business villain from every other Iron Man adventure. So Obadiah Stane, at least he was different. Like he had a vengeful plan. He always planned on bumping off Tony Stark. Had a dark twist.
Yeah.
Who was the next one? Tony Hammer? Justin Hammer.
Yeah,
sorry,
Justin
I thought
Hammer,
I had it written down here. Justin Hammer. He was played by Sam Rockwell. Super different. Great. Like, a lot of people don't like Iron Man 2. That's understandable. It wasn't perfect. But Sam Rockwell, you can drop him in anything, and he could sell me anything over the phone. Yeah, I love that dude. Just is you know Sam Rockwell. He's staring at me a little bit.
No, I know who you're talking about.
Why is he so angry about this movie? That's what you're thinking, looking at me. So it's just the same suited businessman that's got a gripe with Tony Stark. Okay, now I want to talk about what do I want to talk about? The next suited villain with a sad backstory. He was once ugly and he got burned by Stark, and he just brings nothing new to the party. Other villains include the Extremis soldiers who work with Killian and just blow up randomly. They get too heated up and just blow up.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Great. That's an interesting little thing.
Side effect. It's not ideal.
It's not ideal. I mean, I wouldn't recruit them to be my henchmen.
No.
That's a pretty big design flaw.
Mm.
One of them blows up the Chinese theater in LA. I don't know how long ago you saw this movie.
Yeah.
Jon Favreau's Happy Hogan is following one of these guys. He doesn't trust Killian, so he tracks down one of these guys to the theater. He blows up when he encounters him, and it destroys the theater. And that's when the Mandarin takes credit for that attack.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going plot point by plot point here to show one of my biggest issues with this movie.
Okay.
All right? Media release with the Mandarin and those gritty, real terrorist videos that look like they've been shot with a handy cam. And he's all like, I consider myself a teacher. Like, he's so menacing.
Yes.
He is so visceral and real world and menacing. He took one of Iron Man's greatest nemesis and got rid of the incredible racism around that character. Like, that guy's just a really bad, cliched Chinese megalomaniac villain in the comics, apparently.
Yeah.
I've not read them, but a lot of people said he was unfilmable because of that. You couldn't update it.
I think that's sort of the choice that they made was based on appealing to the Chinese market. So it was, in that regard, they made a cowardly choice to make more money, I guess. I think that's what a lot of people, and I mean, maybe you get to that, I don't know, but
I don't, but it's worth discussing.
I don't think they opted to do the twist. Come on, if you haven't seen Iron Man 3 by now,
there's a twist.
There's a twist. So
no, I don't appreciate the twist.
If they had more guts, they would have just made him the Mandarin. They wouldn't have thrown in that twist, but because it would have been seen as offensive to the Chinese market, which is worth so much now. It is in the last 10, 15, 20 years maybe, the Chinese market has become such a major market for films now.
Yeah. I think that, look, the Asian market is not a dumb market. It's a big one. I think if you were to have Ben Kingsley, this American who for some reason hates America and wants to destroy it, called the Mandarin, you can give him a different name in the Chinese release. Yeah. If you're worried about that, that's fine. It's a simple little rewrite. But anyway, you've got one of the most truly real-world terrifying villains that Marvel's ever produced.
Yes.
Now, they don't only misuse him in this, but they replace him with something completely inferior.
Yeah, okay.
In my opinion, right? So the twist comes, no one expects it to come. So Tony Stark has his house blown up. Oh!
Okay, I think
Happy Hogan. I'm going off script.
I've
shut the
wow,
laptop.
I don't
this
know
is
if I'm
happening.
ready. I don't know if I'm ready for this.
I've got demons to...
Everybody just buckle up.
You read from the script of The Room a couple of episodes ago. You can put up with this. So... Happy Hogan's in the hospital. Tony Stark walks out. He's understandably upset. His motivations are clear and pronounced and defined, right? I want the Mandarin dead. I've got freaking PTSD from the time I went into the wormhole. I'm not doing well, and now my best mate just gets blown up. I want to take out all my rage on this terrorist a-hole.
Yes.
And I'm going to do a good thing for me and America. So how does he do that? Gives his address on live TV. Goes home and doesn't even prepare security.
That's because he's just a cocky, smarmy.
Yeah, but he's brilliant. He's a genius. And there's a line in the movie where I'm sorry, I'm pointing at you. I'm getting really upset. There's a line in the movie where he says to his robot, the claw robot.
Yeah.
That he's always picking on.
Yes.
He goes, we're meant to be on full lockdown at the moment, security-wise. And then the female character whose name I can't even remember. She dies halfway through the movie. That's how unimportant she is. She works with Killian.
The Extremis chick, yeah.
Yeah, she works with Killian. She comes driving up their driveway and just gets out of the car and walks in the house. You're some security, Tony. And he even mentions we're meant to be on full lockdown. I just gave out my address to the most wanted terrorist in the world.
Yes.
We're meant to be on full lockdown. Then how did she just drive up the driveway, Tony?
Because the arm guy let them down. The arm robot just...
Don't blame the arm robot. Don't He got blown up too. Don't blame the victim. And then he just launches missiles at Tony Stark's house. And this really burned me up. So he's onto the MK-45, Mark 45 suit, the one that flies towards him. That's a cool idea. I like that. But we see that he's got a whole bunch of other suits down below the house, yeah?
Yep.
The house gets attacked. The MK-45 flies to Pepper Potts.
Yes, to protect her.
To protect her. Cool. Okay, I like that. Then another Iron Man suit gets activated. Tony gets into it, and Jarvis is all like, this is just a prototype. The weapon systems aren't ready. Where are the other 40-odd suits then? Why can't he wear one of them? He then teams up with a child actor that no one asked for, played fine by the kid who's later in Jurassic World. The kid's not at fault, but again, no one asked for this. No one needed to see Tony Stark pair up with a comic relief kid. Goes on a hunt for the extremist people, ends up in Miami going after the Mandarin, kicks in the door, beats up a bunch of people. Okay, fine, no dramas. And from then on, throughout the rest of the movie, I don't care. Because they take his whole motivation as a character in that movie and bitterly flip it on its head and leave Tony Stark in the room as disenfranchised as the audience watching it. Because all the satisfaction out of waiting for Tony to act out revenge on this incredibly dangerous villain, just dead. Just cold dead in the water. Now, full credit to Ben Kingsley. He does an amazing job in this. He plays two really good characters.
Yes.
Trevor Slattery, the actor, and he plays the Mandarin. It's not his fault that Black decided to make this movie with a movie. For the rest of the movie, we're left with Aldrich Killian, who's just the smarmy guy in the suit. Guy Pearce, I swear, is just eyebrowing his way through the movie. By eyebrowing, I mean he's just got his eyebrows turned up in a really... got a good looking, look at me in a suit kind of way. And then when he has to be threatening, he gets angry and yells. It's not his best performance. Watch Iron Man 3 back again with that in mind, and you'll go, yeah, no, he doesn't bring anything interesting as a character at all. Then he breathes fire.
Because of course he does.
Yes. Then all of his henchmen start blowing up. His whole plan from the beginning was to have the Mandarin look like the real villain while he manipulated him. I don't even stop caring so much. I don't even know why. He's kidnapped
Pepper.
The vice president.
Sorry, I do forget. Yes.
Apparently crucial in kidnapping him was putting him in the Iron Patriot suit so that he could attempt to assassinate the president.
Yes. Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
With me so
vaguely. I'm actually realizing how long
it's been a long time since you've watched
the movie.
It's fine. It's not worth rewatching. But if you've got the resources to attack Tony Stark, one of the most rich, powerful, famous men on the planet, on live TV, you can take out the president. There, I'll say it.
Yeah.
If you can try and nearly kill Iron Man, one of the Avengers, a mortal man with mortal men surrounding him with guns should not be a harder target. Throwing it out there. Anyway, and regardless, I'm sorry, I'm nitpicking because, again, I don't care.
Okay.
I don't care about the rest of this plot. What I wanted to see was Tony Stark act out his revenge, his traumatic, scarred psyche, get some sort of closure by taking out, or not get closure.
That's what I'm thinking. If that's how that played out, how could that play out? How could he get
glad you
revenge?
Asked. So what I would have loved to have seen, and it would have been... You might argue this sounds just as unsatisfying as what we got, but what I would have loved to have seen is him actually go after the Mandarin. He and Rhodey, what do they change his name to in this? Iron Patriot or some...
The new suits. Iron Patriot.
War Machine. He and War Machine go to the Middle East looking for the Mandarin. He can have... we can have great scenes where he goes back to the same cave he was in the first one maybe, and he's like, this is where it all began. This is where I started. I was down this path. This is where my... life began to unravel, and yet I was made at the same time. Really poignant stuff like that. And then he tracks down the Mandarin, battles a bunch of guys, and he never quite gets to the Mandarin.
Okay.
And it gets to the point where they're like, is this guy even real? Are we just chasing shadows? And then there can be a big threat that they have to save and stop. And then they can watch another video where he's all like, congratulations, Iron Man, you found me. And they're like, where is he? We're watching this videotape in a cave. I am everywhere. I am indefinable. I am the evil within you. I am the evil within America. And he just smashes the TV because he's like, this is so unsatisfying. I needed to take out my rage on him. That does two things. It establishes the Mandarin as a villain we can use in later movies.
Okay,
a genuinely scary real-world villain. And secondly, it proves the vulnerability of Iron Man. That's when he's at his most interesting, when he's vulnerable. Same with Batman. Because they're these mega rich guys that create themselves and create their abilities and create their own storylines. they're really interesting when they're on their knees in the dirt. Like, how can I throw money at this problem to fix it? Oh, wait, I can't. I have to build myself up as a person to fix it.
Yeah.
That would have been unsatisfying as an ending, but satisfying in the same way. It would have.
I think they would have struggled with. They would then have to address that. That would be the focal point for any future element of Iron Man going forward. Sure. Was they would have to address the Mandarin, where, well, I mean, clearly they're going in this direction with Infinity War and stuff.
The Mandarin,
and that looming question is just going to be kind of not. It's going to be there in a way that's not like, oh, I want to see them get back to the Mandarin. It's like, oh, they've kind of neglected the Mandarin.
We've had that since we first saw Thanos. He's just in the background. Randomly.
But we know we're building up to that. Whereas without the satisfying ending of coming to some sort of conclusion with the Mandarin, he's not there being addressed ever. Whereas Thanos is being addressed again and again to know that we're building up to that. Whereas but
we've had that since though with who's the guy that fights Doctor Strange? I forget his name. Chiwetel
We're really bad at this tonight.
We are bad at this tonight. I don't know. What's the character's name?
You know
the one I mean.
Yeah, I know that.
Chiwetel Ejiofor, a cool character.
Yeah.
He just walks away at the end of that movie, and he's a looming threat for the rest of it.
But he wasn't the antagonist of the film. It wasn't left unresolved. That's what I think the issue would be.
Okay.
If it was left unresolved, is we'd want it resolved. So we'd be sitting there watching Infinity War going, well...
But I still watch this. I still watch the movie we got and think that it's resolved so unsatisfyingly. Terribly unsatisfyingly. The villain we're left with is uninspired, the same stuff we've seen. Again and again, another smarmy suited villain that wants to bring down Iron Man for some personal vendetta, and then the ending is garbage. All of his suits erupt from nowhere, and it's every other bad Marvel... Sorry, I'm going to try and calm down a little bit.
Yes, wrap this up. Calm down.
I will.
Wrap it up.
I know you're not convinced. I don't care. Every other flat Marvel movie is just flat.
Okay.
This one is like a vacuum. I don't care if you're convinced.
No, go.
Are you convinced?
Am I convinced what?
Are you convinced that this is the worst Marvel movie?
You know what? I was going to give you a solid no. I'm going to give you a, you know what, with everything that you've said, let me go back and watch it again. I'm not, I don't think so. I enjoyed it. Okay. I did enjoy it. But I will go and watch it again with everything you've said in mind. And yeah.
Great.
Fresh eyes.
I promise I'm going to stop yelling from now on. James, you're going to discuss The Incredible Hulk.
I am. Not? So, I mean, you know, we're heading into Thor Ragnarok, which could be just a great Thor movie. Sure. But it does have the Hulk. The Hulk looks fantastic. I love that. So, Bruce Banner, alter ego the Hulk, they play a large role in Thor Ragnarok.
Yes.
The story that they're telling in this movie is loosely based on the Planet Hulk storyline. Yeah. It's a major comic story. Since Mark Ruffalo signed on to these, we've had this fantastic version of Hulk, Avengers Age of Ultron. We haven't seen him in a solo film since Edward Norton's spin in the second MCU film, which was The Incredible Hulk back in 2008.
Which, by the way, was fine.
Yeah, it was fairly average sort of critical response.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Much like 2003's Hulk, starring Eric Bana, was fairly average response. So Hulk hasn't had a whole lot of luck standing on his own on the big screen.
No.
But where's one medium where the Hulk has managed to shine?
Comic books.
Well, yes, but television.
Giant novelty gloves that you can bash together that make clobbering time noises.
So back in...
You're right, TV.
Back in the 70s, late 70s, he had a successful TV series.
Yep.
So what I wanted to pitch to you, the idea of let's create a new Incredible Hulk television series that fits inside the MCU.
Okay, so are you thinking in line with the Defenders and...
Yeah, what they're doing on Netflix. Yeah, for sure.
Great.
I'm going to get into...
Please do. Go for it.
So, firstly, why haven't we seen another attempt at a Hulk movie? So, I found this kind of rather interesting. So, Universal held the film rights to Hulk, and they produced the Ang Lee film. This was before the MCU was even conceived.
Yep.
Then, in the early days of the MCU films, Marvel wasn't quite big enough to manage the distribution of these films, so they made a distribution deal with Paramount Pictures. When it came to the Hulk, the production rights had reverted back to Marvel, but Universal still held the distribution rights. So this meant that while the other MCU films were being released by Paramount, Incredible Hulk had to be released by Universal. At the time, no biggie, Marvel needed that support. Then in 2009, Disney bought Marvel. So because Marvel holds production rights, that means they can include the Hulk in any of the ensemble films. The distribution rights are with Universal, so the moment they make a solo film, it has to go through Universal, earning Universal a share of the profits.
Right.
It's really like I'm baffled that they can be two separate things.
I feel like that meme of Zach Galifianakis in The Hangover 2 with
doing the calculations.
Sums and calculations in front of me.
So Universal has the distribution rights, and the House of Mouse, being the juggernaut that it is, they didn't need any assistance in distributing their films, and they didn't want any.
We're making a Hulk TV show.
So meanwhile, Universal is not interested, just pushing on, is not interested in selling these distribution rights back to Disney, so we find ourselves at an impasse. So the Hulk first appeared back in May of 1962, written, of course, by Stan Lee and penciler Jack Kirby. And in sort of all iterations of the character, basically the gist is the Hulk is created when Banner is exposed to gamma radiation.
Yep.
In the comics, they were testing a gamma bomb. And Bruce Banner goes out because there's a teenager that's come out onto the testing field, of course.
Of course.
So he goes out, he says, hold the test. I'm going to go out and save this kid. And the guy that he says, hold the test to one of his other, the guy hates him. So he's like, oh, let's run the test anyway. Boom.
Really?
So blows this gamma bomb and hits Bruce Banner.
What
and
a jerk move.
Yeah, total jerk move. And at first, Bruce seems fine. But so originally, Banner would only transform, that was English.
That was English.
Transform into the Hulk at night. His signature angry transformation didn't come until later.
Wow, okay. So he's like a werewolf vampire.
Essentially, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So the first Incredible Hulk comic series actually only ran for 6 issues.
Okay.
But the character managed to continue on in other series like Fantastic Four, Tales to Astonish. Eventually, he joined the Avengers, and these are the comics where he gradually became a mainstay of Marvel. November 1977 was the beginning of the original Incredible Hulk series, which aired on CBS. It starred Bill Bixby as David Banner and, of course, Lou Ferrigno as the Hulk.
Yes.
So Ferrigno, he's continued to provide the voice of the Hulk.
So it was 2 different... Forgive me.
So Bill Bixby was David Banner. So it was David instead of Bruce in the TV series. Okay. And then when he transformed into the Hulk, it was just this bodybuilder, Lou Ferrigno.
Right.
He's a massive, bulky guy.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I've always known of Lou Ferrigno. I guess in my head assumed it was Bruce Banner, but that doesn't make any sense in hindsight.
Yeah, so they swapped out the actors when he transformed into the Hulk.
Okay, cool.
But Ferrigno's continued to provide the voice of the Hulk in the MCU.
Cool. So, in the cartoons and stuff?
No, in the movies. So anytime you hear the voice of the Hulk, like in the trailer for Thor Ragnarok, I'm pretty sure that's Lou Ferrigno.
That's not Mark Ruffalo?
No, that's Hulk raging fire.
Really?
Thor is smoldering fire. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. He's on the credits anyway as a voice assistant. So
very cool. Okay.
The show ran for 82 episodes over 5 seasons. So it ran from 1977 to June of 1982. It's a pretty decent run for a TV series. The plot followed Banner, who was presumed dead, and he travels across the US under false names, working to find a cure. And he gets temporary jobs to make money, and he offers his help to people he meets along the way. All the while, he's being pursued by a newspaper reporter who wants to expose the Hulk to further his own career. By today's standards, the show is pretty cheesy, but at the time, it was actually thoroughly well received. It's one of the earliest examples of a comic hero being taken seriously in a drama series.
There you go.
So, I mean, it actually had quite good success. We were talking before about these characters becoming essential parts of pop culture in general, not just to nerds. This was probably the earliest example of that, of people accepting this comic character as a main part of entertainment.
Didn't need a gimmick, just needed earnestness, just needed to be done well. Yeah.
We've got to talk about the shows that MCU is not just movies. It's some really fantastic television shows that, in my opinion, they're not tying in well enough. I'd love to see them tie in a little bit more to the movies.
Absolutely.
But they do okay. So, I mean, we've had Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage. Iron Fist wasn't great. But again, same with the movies. I wouldn't say at any point these shows have ever been unwatchable.
No, they're just flat if
they're
not
consistently entertaining at worst and incredible at best. So even shows like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Carter, I think, highly underrated. Agent Carter has ended, unfortunately. It was sort of low viewership, but it's a great show. You should really check out
I haven't checked out either of them. Yeah, I should.
I'm really glad that Hayley Atwell can still continue on making appearances. She was in Ant-Man because the earlier scene. Yep. And potentially she could be in Captain Marvel. the new Captain Marvel film with Brie
Yes,
Larson
because that's in the 90s.
in the 90s, early Shield days.
I love the 90s.
Yeah,
I want a whole soundtrack done by Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and Silverchair.
It'd be fantastic
It'd
if
be
they
great.
could pull that off. Yeah, the way the Guardians soundtrack goes
Yes.
every time.
And a bit of Spice Girls.
Yeah, why not?
Spice up your movie.
Do it. Make it happen, Marvel.
Yep.
Kevin Feige, I hope you're listening.
He is. Of course he is.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's had some fantastic moments. Heading into season 5 at the end of this year.
Yep.
But yeah, season 4 slumped a little bit. Then Jed Whedon, brother of Joss,
Huh.
he wrote and directed this. He's been involved. He's on the team that develops the show anyway. But he wrote and directed this fantastic episode towards the later third of season 4. Absolutely fantastic. And the back third of that season was just on fire. It was amazing.
Yeah, right.
So I was dwindling, losing interest in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I'm back. I'm back in the game. Jessica Jones is one of my favorite MCU shows.
Her backstory is so important to be told.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going through the whole Harvey Weinstein thing at the moment.
Oh, for sure. So
men are pigs, and that's not okay. It's important that these stories get told.
It's an excellent story, and on the surface, it's a great superhero tale. But you're right, it goes in and addresses issues like sexual assault and post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
And David Tennant as Kilgrave is one of the best villains in the MCU, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He's just such a very powerful piece of storytelling. So in the same vein, I'm thinking that the Incredible Hulk series would be an excellent place to explore the topic of depression and mental illness. Okay?
Okay.
You have this character who always has this darkness inside of him. He never knows when it might pop up, but it's always sort of there. It's lingering over him. How can somebody cope with that? We don't really get a full understanding of this in the films, I don't think, save for one really hard-hitting moment in the Avengers. They're all on board the ship, and the sort of tensions are building, and they sort of get to the point where everybody's thinking it like we might need a way to kill the Hulk.
Yeah.
And Bruce says, you can't. I tried. Says, I got low.
Yeah.
I didn't see an end, so I put a bullet in my mouth, and the other guy spit it out. When you stop and you analyze what he's just said, like...
I've never thought about it.
Is a really intense thing to say.
He made a suicide attempt.
He did, yes.
Wow, James. Yeah, okay. Never even... Yeah.
So, I think it's something that really needs to be explored.
Absolutely.
Production value for the Netflix shows is pretty high. I will concede that budget would probably mean they'd have to imply the Hulk quite frequently.
Okay.
You would limit his full appearances. Like Game of Thrones, they limit the appearance of the dragons, and in the last season we didn't even see Ghost. He was alluded to in conversation.
I couldn't believe when someone explained to me why that's the case. I couldn't get my head around it, and they're like, "No, seriously, it's as expensive making a big dog as it is making dragons.
Just show him at a distance. Get a big white dog.
A real dog."
So I would imagine that would be the case with something like the Hulk. You would have to limit how much money you were putting into.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they could throw a bit of extra cash towards this show because it is such a key character. But yeah, there's ways around those budget issues, like imply his appearances, use shadows and silhouettes, show close-ups of his face as he transforms, cut to the next scene, show him waking up amongst the rubble and destruction he's caused. Like a really bad hangover.
Yeah, like he's been on a bender and he's,
And I feel like being forced to limit the appearances of the Hulk would lead to a tighter, more character-driven story focusing on Bruce and his struggle to come to terms with the situation with the Hulk. And I mean, maybe people might think that a Hulk series without a ton of massive fights and destruction might be a bit boring. I mean, but like it doesn't have to be. I've often talked to you about how one of my favorite episodes of Daredevil, actually, favorite episodes of television.
Yeah.
It's in season 2, episode 3. It's titled New York's Finest.
Yeah.
It mostly just consists of Daredevil and Punisher talking on a rooftop.
Come on, Red.
Something that if you pitch that, like it would sound boring in theory, but solid writing and performances. The execution was flawless.
Yeah, and because the character motivations are so clear and well defined.
So I mean, if you get the perfect writing team on board for the Hulk, I don't think there's going to be a problem with telling a story mostly from Bruce's perspective.
Yeah, sure.
Kevin Feige and Mark Ruffalo, they've discussed that a Hulk story arc could occur over sort of a trilogy of films. The first being Thor Ragnarok, obviously borrowing elements from Planet Hulk. Then Avengers Infinity War and the fourth Avengers films will make up the last two parts of the Hulk trilogy, borrowing elements from World War Hulk, where Hulk returns to Earth and he seeks revenge on those who exiled him. In the MCU, he was self-exiled. So could we perhaps end up seeing the Mind Stone being used again, like in Age of Ultron?
Oh, okay.
Only this time it's wielded by Thanos. So currently there is a plan for the Hulk heading into the future, but I mean, is that enough? Will this story arc get drowned out by the sheer overload of characters in these two Avengers films? I feel like it could. I think we need to really take some time to explore this character properly.
Yes.
And we spoke last week about TV becoming the medium to really take the time to dive into these deeper, more meaningful stories and truly flesh out a character. And I think that Bruce Banner is the perfect candidate. Where would it fit? I'm potentially thinking during Phase 1, between Incredible Hulk and the Avengers.
I like that.
We follow Banner on the run after the battle with Abomination New York.
Mm-hmm.
Just like so on board in the Avengers, right after that scene where he says he put a bullet in his mouth and the guy spat it out.
Yeah.
He goes on and he says, I began focusing on helping other people. Just like
there's
the original
your story.
That's the plot of the original series. So do that again. Just like the original series, he's helping other people out while he's trying to find a cure for his condition.
Great.
As the series progresses, Bruce is gradually going to come to terms with the Hulk.
Mm.
You have that line in Avengers, "That's my secret. I'm always angry." It's actually kind of stupid when you think about it.
But when you take it from the point of view you have, which is that there's a great misconception about depression, which is that people fight it for a bit and get better.
Yeah.
More often than not, no one's fighting, and more often than not, you live with it.
Yeah. So if you can do a great story that turns that line, that's my secret. I'm always angry. It then becomes, I've accepted that this condition is part of who I am, and I'm living with it.
Yeah.
Like that becomes really powerful. Where I think people didn't really read between the lines of that.
I never did.
Yeah.
I never did. I always took it to be he's grappling with an alter ego. I looked at the Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
And Jekyll and Hyde's an allegory not for depression, but for the depravity of someone, like the negativity of someone.
Yeah, okay.
Whereas the depression is an illness. It's a sickness that someone has. It's not their fault. It's something that they, like we say, they live with.
Yeah. And I mean, you could certainly address that, moral dilemmas of everybody's got a dark side as well. But I certainly think it has certain comparisons to depression, to this lingering thing in your mind that you eventually have to learn to live with.
It could also be a thing of, I mean, if you wanted to have a bit of an antagonist character, that trying to find the right word that isn't a swear word to describe these people, cheer up, mate. That bloke.
Yeah.
You got no reason to be depressed. That guy.
Yeah.
You got no reason to be angry all the time, Banner. This is your choice. Just don't be the Hulk again.
just don't do it. Yeah.
And Banner can even stand there going, "Oh, I never thought of that. I should just never get angry again." You're so right. Yeah.
But, yeah. So you bring up a good point. Like, who would we have as a villain? Potentially, you could have Thunderbolt Ross still chasing him.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You could have Shield.
Yes.
Like they knew where he was in Avengers, so they're clearly tracking him. So maybe it'd be interesting to see Shield as an antagonist type.
Yes, it would be.
And really, I think I would love to see Bruce reach that point of acceptance. So I mean, I'll wrap things up really quick, but as a side note, so I'm a real stickler for maintaining consistency across sequels. In the Edward Norton film, he wore a heart rate watch.
This is real deep cuts you're getting into here.
In Avengers, it's nowhere to be seen, and it had been such a focal point. So you saw a close-up of this heart rate watch every time he was about to transform. Call me ridiculous, but I want to know why he stopped wearing the watch.
Because he's reached acceptance of his condition.
Yeah, so that could be a little tiny element of. I mean, it's ridiculous.
But it could be a profound thing where throughout the whole movie
he throws it away. He's like, I don't need this anymore.
I don't need that. It stresses me out more.
To monitor.
To want to check it. To want to see, am I okay constantly?
Yeah.
And then he flicks it away, and the relief of knowing that it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
We're going to write this.
Okay.
Let's stop doing the podcast. Let's sit down and pen the first episode now.
But and obviously at the very beginning of Avengers, we catch up with him. Natasha walks in and finds him in Calcutta, I think, in India.
Yeah, the
He's
slums of India.
helping a small. I mean, depending on how long it went for, if you got to a point where it essentially ends right there, you see that scene replayed where he chases that little girl to go help her sick father or whatever it was, and then Natasha walks
credits,
and then that's it.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So I mean, to wrap up, I've explained what the story could be, where it could fit in. why it would be a great story to tell. And I mean, so with everything I've mentioned, and including the fact, so you're gonna be limited on the appearances of the Hulk due to budget reasons. That's gonna constrain you a little bit. But do you think this would be a great show? Are you convinced that Marvel should develop an Incredible Hulk TV series?
I flat out am.
Yeah.
I really am. And more than that, I want you at the helm.
Okay.
I want you writing
I've got the idea. This is something like, look, we've 4 pages, A4 pages of dot points. I mentioned this to you.
It's crazy.
I went crazy. This has been on my mind for a while.
I can tell. You thought about this really deep. Yeah. Almost as deeply as I've thought about how much I hate Iron Man 3, which I should say this has gone for a long time.
Oh, no, it's about average. We're good.
We're good. I mean, I feel like I was just shouting at you for a while, and I'm sorry about that, but both two very impassioned arguments.
Yeah. What did you think? What's your least favorite Marvel film?
I just told you.
Is it Iron Man 3?
I spent like 20 minutes explaining to you why. Oh, you're asking the listeners.
No, the listeners. Yes.
Oh, the listeners. Sorry.
What is your least favorite Marvel movie? Is it Iron Man 3? Is there another one? Would you watch an Incredible Hulk TV series?
Is there another character that could also work in a different medium like TV?
Yeah. Is there a character that hasn't been brought to the MCU yet that you'd like to see brought, either TV or movies?
And let's rule out all the legal fiddlings as well.
Yeah.
Like, no.
We would all love to at one point, and especially if they manage to just keep it secret.
Yep.
Hugh Jackman to come back just one more time.
One more time.
The MCU,
that's all we need. Yeah,
and
exactly.
He walks out, claws come out, and it's just, okay, Bob.
Yep. Doesn't matter how you achieve it. I don't care. I won't ask the question. If that happens and I'm in the cinema, I will stand up and throw my popcorn.
Yes.
Just like, I'll fangirl out over that.
But any thoughts you've had about this episode, please let us know in the comments or on our social media accounts. We have Twitter and Instagram, which is @AreYouConvinced. Facebook is Are You Convinced? If you search Are You Convinced in the search bar, or type in www.facebook.com/areyouconvinced.podcast. Just real quick, on our Instagram, make sure you go to our Instagram, because I'm going to put up a really cool, fun little thing that I did at D23.
Yes.
You've seen this.
I've seen it.
It's
I
hilarious.
loved it.
You'll have to go check out our Instagram. Make sure you give that a like and make sure you follow that.
You are such a nerd. You are so proud of that.
I'm so proud. But that's been the MCU, a topic that I feel like we're going to have to come back to.
Yeah, we might have to do a part 2 at some point. Yep.
What's next week?
Next week, well, I was about to say here in Australia. No, all around the world. We're coming up.
At the end of October comes to every nation.
But not every nation celebrates Halloween.
Yes.
It's something that in Australia, I think we're
the last 10 years.
We're really getting into it.
Now.
The new generation is, yeah. Have you ever spent a Halloween in America?
Yes. So I was there 3 years ago, and I was on Hollywood Boulevard walking up. Everybody was in costume, and like, I'm not joking, like 1 million people, like so many people out on the streets in Hollywood, in costume.
Wow.
And in high quality costume.
They take it seriously then, don't they?
It was insane. So
great.
They take it seriously. We haven't got to that point yet, but no. I mean, we're embracing it.
We're embracing it, you and I, because we're going to be talking all things supernatural and paranormal.
Yes. So, I mean, ghost stories, urban legends, anything like that.
I'm not going to be able to sleep that night.
But if you do have any suggestions for a different topic, we'd love to hear it. Love to hear from you.
And as always, guys, go out there, convince your friends, convince your family, convince your dog and your cat to listen. We really appreciate it.
As long as they do it on their own computer and give us the extra view and like.
That's right. Yeah, exactly right. Go out and buy your cat and dog a laptop, just a cheap one, and get them to
go out and buy another cat and dog.
Do it just to have another reason to play this podcast in your house.
Yes, please do. But thank you. We love doing this. We're having a lot of fun, and we hope you're enjoying it as much as we are. Thank you so much for listening.
If you are, let us know, and we hope to see you again next week.
We'll catch you then. Cheers.
Bye.